On the agenda tonight, we're going to be taking a look at the plugin that is now a music industry standard. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So I do receive a lot of questions about this subject, auto-tune, pitch correction, the difference between the two, and what does it mean to be an industry standard, all these kinds of things. So I will address this in tonight's video, and we'll start off by saying that in the late 90s, when Cher released Believe, that was the first time the general public really had heard auto-tune, and it was almost a bit of a gimmick at that point. And pitch correction before this point was always very subtle, actually quite difficult to do, but as time has progressed, so has the technology, and over the last 15 or 20 years, certainly pitch correction and auto-tune has developed to a point where it's now really easy to use and sounds a lot more natural. Auto-tune is something that's generally going to be used live because it's automatic, hence the auto of auto-tune. It means that nobody's doing it, nobody's taking somebody's voice and adjusting it as it's happening, because that's impossible. You're going to be relying on a computer to do that for you. So it takes the signal and instantly snaps it to whichever note it's either closest to or whichever scale it has been programmed to for that particular song, so that there's never a wrong note in there. With pitch correction, this is something that you do manually. So you'd be in the studio, somebody would record their vocal, and then that vocal will be edited. So the notes will be moved around by somebody looking at them and dragging them to where they think the note should be. And generally, more often than not, that's going to be A440 standard tuning. That's what producers are snapping the notes to or dragging them to. So when you do look at the notes through pitch monitoring software, it just looks like the notes are directly over the line, because that's effectively what's happening. They're dragging them over these lines, these tuning lines of A440 standard tuning. So for this video, I'm going to be referencing another video because I don't use pitch correction or auto-tune on my own vocals. But I thought, well, if I'm talking about pitch correction, I should download Melodyne, which is a pitch correction plugin, just so I can see what it can do and what it can't do. And of course, because I was a beginner, never used it before, I had to watch an instructional video, and that's the video that I'm going to reference. So the video we're going to be looking at is from the channel Studio Hustlers, and this is Andy, who's a producer, and he's taking you through how to use it, and he just gives an example vocal in order to show people what Melodyne can do. So if you do use Melodyne, or you're just starting to use it, this video that I'm going to be looking at is going to be a great resource for you, because Andy takes you through everything. And the name of this video is Melodyne Tutorial, How to Use Melodyne Fast. And I'm going to leave a link to that in the description below, so you can check it out if you want to. So the first thing that's going to be happening here is cutting off consonants, and this is what Andy's explaining, that he's going to be taking off, the S's and the T's and the things at the beginning of each word, so then the note is left afterwards. And these red blotches here are the notes. This is what Melodyne has done. So he's already played it through, and obviously I've skipped that part where he's played it into Melodyne, and now we're into the editing. So I'm just going to let the video play through a little bit.
Okay. And basically just go through it line by line and just cut off the consonants. Okay, so right here we have pitch and then no pitch. Let's go ahead and cut that right there by double clicking.
So already here, we're now separating a word up. So just to give you guys the appreciation of the detail that we're getting into with this particular edit, and this is an industry standard, by the way. So this will be happening to every vocal that is recorded now and released with major labels. You might get independent artists who are still not using pitch correction, but even still, I think a lot of artists will be using it because everybody's using it. And we've heard that on the channel before. People saying, well, I'm using it because everyone else does. And that seems to be a common train of thought. The good thing about Andy's video is, he's very clear with explaining everything, and sometimes he says that you might not want to do this in this way because it might sound unnatural and it will sound a little bit weird and robotic and mechanical. And he's giving hints about how to use it so it doesn't sound like some really bad pitch corrected songs that have been released. But I think a lot of producers aren't even taking that in. Andy is suggesting that you do take that in, that don't always just stick it to 0 cents, A440 standard tuning. Just move it a little bit to get it to sound a little bit more natural. But we can already see just in what we've edited already that no pitches have been changed, but it's now a case of cutting up every consonant from the beginning of every word. And I know what people are going to be thinking. They're going to be thinking, well, why not just sing the line and just, if you didn't nail it, just sing it again? Because that would be a lot quicker. Because this is just starting out. I mean, what we've got here is probably something like na 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 na. It's probably like that. So those are the notes. I'm not sure of the words, but that's the melody. So like I said, I've never used Melodyne before, but just watching this instructional video gave me an appreciation of how much is being edited. Because I thought maybe it might just be the odd note here or there in a whole vocal performance, but it's every word that's being cut up so that the consonant is now different to the note, and then you adjust the note by itself without affecting the consonant. So yeah, really interesting stuff.
Basically, we're just going to drag these notes to where they're at the correct pitch, or you can just double click them. So let's go ahead and just double click.
So you can see that he's now double clicking the notes that have registered, and that snaps them to the note, like perfectly to the note. And I think that's what's happening in I think that's happening in the industry, because I mean, producers, all they've got to do is double click on it and it's now going to be a perfect note. It's going to be perfectly tuned, and it's going to be too perfect because it isn't how vocal cords work, but they're just double clicking on everything. So I'm just going to let that play on.
These. Okay, let's see where we're at first.
And you can hear there how he dragged it to a note, and you get to hear the note where it is. And he's just going to listen now to get a reference point, I think.
Some context of the song.
Maybe I should walk away.
So there, that first phrase here, all of this editing that's going on is for maybe I should walk away. Is for that. And then maybe I should let it happen. Something like that on that second line. But this gives you an insight into how much of this editing is going on with a vocal, that it's literally every na 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 na. I mean, we're talking about milliseconds. Maybe every 40 or 50 milliseconds we're having an edit
between each note. So you can either go like straight into the note with a straight vertical line, or you can kind of ease into that new pitch.
So now what we've got is an option to enter into a note, which I would classify as a stylization by the vocalist. So when you slide up into a note and you say that you're going up to there, ha, ha, you start below, ha, and sometimes stylistically you might do it quickly and go ha, like that, or you might go ha, or do it slowly. So this is now the option that you get on Melodyne to do that, to have a stylistic choice that I would assume and I would expect a singer to do that. And I think back in the day in the studio, you'd say to the singer, oh, try doing a more delayed slide, especially if the singer is singing somebody else's song. The person might say, oh, try a more delayed slide. But now that's all done with the plugin. So you do your one vocal take. And if you did a slow slide, but they wanted it to be faster, you don't need to be able to do that vocally. They can now change it or change what you did, speed up your slide effectively. So from that standpoint, it's now taking stylizations that a vocalist would naturally put in and putting them into a vocal take where they didn't originally exist. And I know that people will think, well, that means that you're now giving the technology the ability to make a singer who couldn't slide quickly or slide slowly or accurately, it's now giving them that ability, or at least it's making it sound like they've done that when they haven't done that. And again, this is all subjective, and whether you think that that's a good thing or a bad thing, And I think the only problem with that is if you're getting somebody's voice to sound a particular way and it's not them and they can't do that, when you then go and watch it live, obviously there's going to be a bit of a disconnect from what you know their voice to be, and then hearing it live, it might not kind of tick the boxes that you thought it would because of what you've been listening to. But again, just an example of what the technology can do.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do that.
So you might have been able to see there that the natural wave of pitch that existed, and actually the way that Andy's vocal cords vibrated in order to make the sound. When vocal cords vibrate, it means that that pitch is going to move. It's never going to be a straight line because they're vocal cords. So the fact that he's now taking the natural vibration and vibrations of the vocal cords and squashing them down, it means that that vibration is now happening less than it actually did in real life in order to make that sound. So yeah, if you keep squashing it all the way down, it's going to turn into a keyboard. So this is why it starts to sound a little bit more mechanical, and why Andy says, yeah, try to avoid doing that. You're not just taking a vocal note that's been held and moving it, you're adjusting the vibrations within that note, and it will look like you're going sharp and flat, but that's just the natural variation you get in a human voice, but that's starting to be taken out.
This is more for like vibrato.
Oh yeah, so here, just to clean up the vibrato thing, so Andy says about this tool being for vibrato. So if you have walk away, and if you held that note and applied vibrato to it, then you can make that wider way or shallower way with this tool. So again, that's something that I would class as a stylization of the singer. They get to they should get to decide how their vibrato sounds and how wide it is and how shallow it is and how dramatic they want it to be and whether they apply it at all, and all these different stylistic things, with the sliding that we've already mentioned. I would say that that's part of a singer's personality and just the way that they do things. So starting to think about, taking a voice like Shirley Bassey's, who had, way, and she does have that very wide vibrato, thinking of shallowing that out to be way, it now wouldn't sound like her voice anymore because her vibrato is part of who she is. It's how her vocal cords work and that natural vibrato that she has. So yeah, again, I would class that as a stylization, even though in this particular example, it was just pitch. So Andy wasn't doing vibrato. That was just the natural vibrations of his vocal cords that made that pitch happen, sharp and flat. So yeah, but he's saying that if you want to make your vibrato different, then you can do it with this as well.
I kind of liked it without even messing with it. Maybe I should walk away. All right, so.
And, I mean, that's a great bit of advice as well, that he already liked the sound before he started messing with it. So listen, use your ears. If you like the sound of something, just keep it like that. And when I'm saying this, I'm pretty much saying it to the mainstream music industry, but I know that a lot of producers aren't listening. They're just looking. They're looking at the software and adjusting everything to the notes on the left-hand side. So they're not hearing it and thinking, oh, I like that sound, regardless of where the notes are. And I think that's a huge part of music, obviously, because it's sound. You've got to listen to it rather than looking at it. So yeah, I'd say that the majority of the mainstream music industry aren't doing what Andy's telling you to do, or at least advising you to do, which is make sure you listen to it and see if it sounds good. And if it sounds good, then don't worry about editing it so much.
That's all you need to do, really. You want it to still sound natural.
And there you have it. But let it just play
Let's go
on.
ahead and try the next line.
Maybe I should let it happen.
So now we're just going to edit this, and I know that people watching this are going to think there's hardly anything audio-wise here. Na 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 na. That many notes. You can imagine somebody in the studio being in front of the microphone, and I think it was, maybe I should let it happen, and then saying, okay, stop. And you say, what? I'm going to record the vocal for the song. They say, oh no, that's all we need, because now we edit this, and That's after having just gone, maybe I should walk away. Doing that, and they go, right, stop. We're going to edit this now for the next kind of 15, 20 minutes. And then you do the next line. Then we edit it. Then you do the next line. Then we edit it. You know, I think, I mean, maybe it's taking studios longer to do vocals now because of the amount of editing they're doing rather than just getting the singer to do it. And I know, again, there's going to be this massive debate saying, well, maybe it's just the case that singers can't do it and it needs this amount of editing. And, you know, there might be people that aren't even hitting the notes as accurately as Andy is here in the example. If you don't know about this, I'm sure that it is eye-opening to see the kind of detail that you can now edit pitch in. This isn't analog anymore, you know, speeding up tape and slowing down tape to pitch. This is now cutting off a consonant and editing the second half of the word from a pitch perspective.
Even that out. Let's see what that sounds like.
Maybe I should let it happen. Let it. Maybe I should let it happen. Happen. Maybe I should let it happen. And maybe I should let it happen.
But anyway, you start to get the idea that, I mean, I think a lot of people listening to Andy's vocal there wouldn't really be able to tell the difference after the pitch correction. And this is ultimately the point, that I think great voices, great singers don't need pitch correction because they're already sounding great. And ultimately, pitch correction is a tool that is going to take somebody's voice who doesn't sound great and get it closer to sounding great. That's what the pitch correction does. So when you've got a voice that's already great, you can just leave it as it is. But it's even better for the industry if those great singers can have pitch correction applied to their voice to sound the same as the other person who has been pushed up to that level. So it's kind of bringing them down and pushing them up so that it's all now comparative from one singer to the next. That is the downside, that great singers will now be just at the same level and they'll potentially lose a lot of their stylizations like slides and vibrato because that might be edited by the producer. And it's weird to think of that because as a guitarist first and a singer second, I think if somebody was editing my vibrato that I play on my guitar, I wouldn't be very happy about that because, you know, I spent a very long time being able to vibrato and express myself how I wanted to through the instrument and to be able to control it. And every vibrato that I do is 100% intentional. It's the way that I want to sing through the instrument. So for a producer to then come along and say, oh, your vibrato there, I prefer it this way, so I'm going to change it to how I think it should sound. That's what's happening now with vocals from singers. And I don't know whether singers actually know that you can get into this kind of detail, especially those that aren't producers. They might just perform their vocal and then the producer could go and change their vibrato, change their slides, and the singer might be totally unaware that it's all going on. So yeah, from a personal perspective, if it was me playing my guitar, or even, with my voice, if they were changing my voice, I wouldn't be particularly happy about it. But it's an industry standard, so it means that the record labels have the final say, and the singer doesn't, unfortunately. They just have to accept it. They've signed the contract at the end of the day. So anyway, just as a final thought for this video, I know that a lot of people in my comment section and just across the internet in general say that music was better 30, 40, 50, 60 plus years ago. And that's their opinion. And obviously it's subjective and that's what they think. But I think with all of the analysis videos that we've done on the channel and looking at singers especially, I think the objective fact is that music was more difficult 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, before the onset of digital pitch correction, whether that be correcting pitch automatically with auto-tune or pitch correction after the fact with software such as Melodyne. Before this all came in, you had to be a lot more accurate with your voice, and things like vibrato and slides were down to the singer, and pitch accuracy as well. That was down to the singer. Even if they were singing it in a different key, they then had to still be accurate, and then they might speed up the tape for the release and it might sound a semitone higher, for example. But it means that they've still sung the whole song a semitone lower, but really accurate pitch-wise. So that is what I would say, that's not a subjective opinion, that is a fact, that you can do things nowadays that make it a lot easier to sing, to hit notes, to hit pitches accurately, because that's a huge part of singing, being able to hit the notes. Because that's why when somebody can't sing very well, people say that they sound flat or they sound out of tune. It's because that's the main thing of singing, is to hit melodies that correspond to the backing, to the instrumentation. When they relate to each other, then it sounds nicer, and somebody is then seen as being better at singing because they're matching the melody and the accuracy of the notes. But yeah, nowadays that can be done digitally, so you can be not very close but then edited afterwards. So, and when we're talking about auto-tune, that can be done live. Thankfully, at the moment, instrumentalists are still actually playing what they're playing, but yeah, whether that'll change, I don't know. Whether, you know, they'll start pitch correcting and auto-tuning guitar lines, so you don't even need to know which notes to push down on your guitar because they're automatically corrected. Seeing how pitch correction works and the amount of editing that goes into it for then the final result is not going to change my own view of it. For my own music, I'm not going to start using pitch correction. I just want to be able to sing what I sing, and then people can deal with that whether they like it or not. But at least I know that I've done it. I suppose that's an important thing to me. Like, I've learned to play the guitar. I know that what I'm playing is something that I've learned to do, and with singing, because I've learned to sing, I know that that's something I've learned to do as well. So I don't want to try and make my voice or my playing something that it isn't, because yeah, that it isn't what I want to be like artistically. Just, you know, it is what it is, as they say. Yeah, the video from Andy is great because it really does show a lot of the stuff that you can do. So keep those future video suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below. As always, let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!